Hey, YouTube Live. This is Mark, Church at the Gates, and we're just going to let this run for a few minutes. We're glad you're kind of trickling over from Facebook, and sorry we had some Actually, I'm not apologizing for Facebook. It's their problem. We're excited that you've made it all the way to YouTube, and we're going to spend some time talking about how to pandemic-proof your budget. What does it look like in times of uncertainty, in times of um, where finances just aren't as sure as they were 2 or 3 weeks ago? What does it look like to take a budget and be responsible with it? Like, what does it look like when you're getting off, or if you're about to be laid off, or what if in this season you have enough? Like, what should your responsibility be to those around you? And so we're going to spend some time doing that. If you are new to Church at the Gates, we have a ton of content, and we're excited just to in this unknown season to provide encouraging and practical content for you to be able to kind of survive and kind of thrive in this moment. Like on Sunday, we provided kind of a crash course for homeschooling that's on our Facebook page with some friends of mine who are tremendous homeschoolers who can really give, if you want to watch, a bunch of really great advice and kind of down to earth practical stuff. Or this Thursday, if you've got kids at 8:30, we've got a counselor who's going to help kind of think through, kind of help us process, how do we talk to our kids about this? How do we help them deal with the anxiety that's there? So this Thursday, 8:30. We've got one next week, what it looks like to pandemic-proof your marriage, and what does it look like to, in the season of the unknown, communicate well. Like, it's hard every day. But we're excited. So if you go to Facebook or YouTube, or you can go to our church website, churchatthegates.org, sign up for our newsletter. We'd love to let you know what's going on. One other thing I want to let you know up front is we're going to be talking about finances today, and quite a bit of it is going to be from what's called Financial Peace University. And this is a class, it's a 9-week class that we lead, and it's a Dave Ramsey class. If you don't know, I mean, he's got a call-in show, and it really is what it looks like to make a budget and stick to it, and really begin to take control of your finances in a really organized way. And so we lead these classes, and we're going to lead one on Zoom here, kind of for anyone who wants to. You can just text FPU to 406-206-1988, and we'll get you in our next class. And like an example of how effective it is, our most previous class, our most recent class, had about $500,000 of consumer debt, and that's like medical bills, that's car loans, that's credit card debt, that kind of stuff. And in 9 weeks, they paid off over $100,000 in debt and saved $22,000. And the reason I say that is because there are ways that we can change habits, and we would love for you to be a part of that. So you can text FPU to 406-206-1988, and we'd love to kind of walk you through that. We'll have some people leading that, and there's no real class size limit. We'll do as many as we can, and get you on the road to kind of freedom in that. And so as we talk about the budget today and what it looks like to be prepared with your budget, to really evaluate what you're spending, what's going out, we're doing this. I'm the pastor of Church at the Gates. If you don't go to church, like, that's totally okay. But we have a passion to make sure that you know how to really thrive with money, because we believe that everything we have comes from God. And that God has given us this money, or our relationships, or our jobs, like, to steward or to manage well. And so we want to help you manage what God has given you well. In Matthew 6, Jesus talks about how the Father cares for, how God cares for the lilies and the birds and the wheat and the fields and all these beautiful things. And he says, well, how much more does your Father in heaven care about you? And then he says, listen, we can trust what God says about provision, because your Heavenly Father, God, knows what you need. And so as a Christian, I believe that God knows exactly what I need. And I differentiate that from what I think I need, right? That if God knows what I need, and he loves me and prizes humanity, you, more than anything else, like, he will take care of us. And so what we're doing today is kind of an outflow of that belief that if God has given us all of these things, and our job is to manage what God has given us well, then we want to do that. We want to make sure our finances are managed well. And so part of that is trusting God for the Christian, saying, you know what, I got to trust you with this, that even if I lose my job, that the Bible, what it says about you loving me and providing for me is still true, but also the Bible calls us to be wise with money and to be wise with how we plan and all of that. And so the rest of this session is really kind of a working out of a trust in God that we have as a church, but also a desire to help people think wisely about money. And so I want to bring in Chris Richard here, who is going to be kind of like the co-host. And Chris is a friend of mine. He goes to our church, and he is a local business owner and all around awesome guy. And I want to, Chris, give us a little bit of introduction of who you are and why this is such a passionate piece of your life.
Well, thanks, Mark. I miss you, man. I miss hanging out with you. So It's nice to at least see you. So that's good. I'm just a businessman here in Montana. We have a small tech company that's based in Missoula and in Butte. And I just have a heart to help people with their finances where I can. I had the opportunity to co-lead a Financial Peace University class that just finished up a few weeks ago. I co-led that with Phil Oyen, who is just an amazing guy. If people don't know him,
tall and strong.
Yeah, when we're done, like socially distancing from each other, people should really get to know him and Ashley more because they're just amazing people, and I got to hang out with them a lot. And like you said, it was shockingly successful in the sense that people really changed the trajectory of their financial pathway. And so it was amazingly rewarding to be a part of that. It's something that I want to continue to do for a long, long time, and just help people where they are. And whether that's a virtual class that we teach or an in-person class like we taught recently, the principles remain the same. We want to say that our finances are this math problem that we need to solve. But the truth is almost all of it is an emotional thing. Like, we have emotional ties to our financial decisions.
Yeah.
And when we begin to deal with the emotional side of our finances, the math just sort of works itself out. And so that's really what we try to focus on. It's what I want to try to focus on with people that want some help with their finances. So that's where we are. My training is I'm trained as an economist and an engineer. And what that means is, as an economist, I can tell you what's going to happen in the future. As an engineer, I can tell you why I'm wrong. So that's really what I bring. But and it's important to note also what I'm not. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a finance professional. I'm not an insurance professional. I'm not a banker or a tax expert. I have opinions. I have ideas in these areas. I love to, talk over somebody's problems with them. But of course, anytime you have like a big major change that you're going to make, be sure to talk to those people too and get good advice from several directions from people that are professionals in that particular aspect of your life.
Yeah, that's good. So what we're going to do today is Chris and I have kind of thought about three different types of people. Person one is someone who right now crisis is not on the horizon. They've got a stable job and they're in one of the industries right now where we need them. They're going to be working a ton, and so it's not likely they'll be furloughed or laid off, and so they don't have the same amount of worry about that. The second type of person is someone who the crisis could be looming, where they're in a kind of a squishy industry that could be really affected by this, and there's a lot of unknown there. And so what does it look like to at least begin to prepare for that possibility? It may not be an eventuality, but how can we begin to prepare for that? And then person number three is crisis is here. My finances are a dumpster fire and I'm terrified. And so we're going to spend the balance most of our time on person three because we think there's going to be more of that here in the next weeks and months. And we want to make sure that we kind of equip as much as possible people in this kind of really extreme moment with as much wisdom as we can and advice. And I think I would second what Chris says. We're not experts, but we've gone through some of this before in Financial Peace, and we want to really just pass on some basic encouragements and structures for how you can at least begin to process through this. So we'll start with this first person, someone who for them crisis is not on the horizon. Chris, what are some of the things, or how would you begin kind of addressing people in this boat? Because it's important for people in this boat to at least begin thinking about our situation.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, even if crisis is not on the horizon, certainly the landscape is changing significantly. and quickly. And so if there's ever been a time to kind of take it easy and store some cash up in the bank and be prepared for a problem, have an emergency fund, now is a great time as you're working to put that money into an emergency fund. It is prudent, it is wise, and it is possibly going to be needed. And so I think that is something that's important to first off think like, okay, I don't need to be running paycheck to paycheck on the ragged edge. I need to have some money in the bank just in case the unexpected does happen, even in a situation where you think that your job is rock solid. But in addition to that, I really think that any of us that are in this particular case, we have a responsibility in this. And that responsibility is one to help our neighbors and to be available to help out in places that maybe we haven't been asked to help out as much before. The responsibility that is on this group of people, I think, is pretty tremendous, and we need to be willing to step up and help where we can. And that help isn't always just straight money, right? Like there's a lot of different ways, and we could discuss, what some of those other ways are. I mean, just reaching in your wallet and handing a $20 bill to somebody, that might be the right answer, but the truth is there's a lot of different ways that somebody that's still working can help.
Yeah, and I think, to that end, if you find yourself in this and you have plenty, and what I mean is you've got more than what you need and it seems stable, one of the things you can do is you can buy more of the things that you use, not to hold on to, but to give away. It's right. A ton easier to give away a $20 bag of chicken from Costco and feel good about it than wondering what a $20 bill is going to go to and all of that. And so there's a ton of ways you could buy more in order to give away, and that's a lot easier for people to receive. More people are there's going to be less shame associated with a chicken, for example, than $20.
And I mean, it's very possible that some of us have maybe panic bought a few extra items in the last week. No. And this is, if you have a little buyer's remorse with some of that, this is a great opportunity to seek out those that maybe are a roll or two short of toilet paper, and you could maybe gift them a little bit.
Do you know what I've been to Walmart in the last hour and a half? You know what we have not been panic buying?
What's that?
Toothpaste and toothbrushes. So we're going to look a lot like England here after this whole thing. messed up teeth. We love you, England, I guess. I've been thinking about this as a believer. I just feel compelled to share this. And Chris, I just shared this with you earlier. There's that line in the Lord's Prayer, "Give us this day our daily bread." And there's actually a really good example in the Old Testament of hoarding and God's attitude towards it. In the Israelites were in the desert, and God was providing manna and quail, and He said, gather just this much every day. Take only what you need, because if you take more, it's going to spoil, and there'll be judgment on you. And I just think, even in my own heart, I've had to check. Okay, is this more than I need? Am I hoarding because I don't trust God? Because two things happen. If we take more than we need, one, it just shows our lack of trust in God and His ability to provide. But it also is an affront to Jesus' command to love your neighbor, because we've created these false runs on toilet paper, and now there are people, in LA, I hear they're clogging toilets with T-shirts, which that may just be LA, I don't know. But the point is, for the Christian, there really isn't a framework for hoarding. And you see that in the Old Testament. God hates that, because it's against, and there's a wisdom, right? There's a wisdom to having something and planning and preparing, and yet there can be an affront to God's provision in your life by taking more than you need, which then robs your neighbor of what they need.
So our responsibility at this level, at the crisis is not imminent for me, my job is secure, is to have that outward focus that. Number one, yes, you do need to take care of your family, and you do need to make sure that your finances are in good order. I think that is good biblical wisdom to be under control in your own household. But once that is under control, you do need to look outwardly and help those that are around you and be kind and generous with what you've been blessed with, because there's a lot of people in our community today that are not in this category anymore, and they are in one of the next ones that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and real quick, Chris, before we go to the next person, if you're watching this and you've got a specific budget question, you've got a specific question for one of us on budgeting, or you've got a financial issue you'd love for us to try to address, you can just drop it in the YouTube comments, and at the end of this, we'll stick around and answer whatever questions we can. And we would encourage you, if you are on YouTube and you've got answers to those questions, then feel free to crowdsource as much information on that stream as possible. So we've looked at person one, the crisis is not on the horizon, how really like their posture should be one of generosity, if possible. And we know that's a heart thing. Like we're not, like you can't compel generosity. That is something that comes from the heart. And so we just encourage that. The second is someone who's in one of those squishy jobs or industries where the crisis could be looming, supply chain issues, just the dominoes fall. And
and this is, I mean, there's a lot of people that could potentially be in this category. I mean, when we look at the last category, if you're a nurse at the hospital right now, it's on, the ICU wing, your job is super secure. It appears as though the public school teacher, their job continues to be secure, their paycheck is secure. Yeah. But right here, Missoula, the construction market is booming and is continuing to boom. But with an economic slowdown, it's possible that particular thing would pull back and there would be less construction work in the future. And if you're in that particular area, or maybe there's just another market that you're familiar with or that you're in, and you look and you say, 3-4 months from now, if the economy slows down, if the stock market doesn't recover at a really quick rate, it's possible that my job is going to dry up. And that's what we're probably talking about here is this. We aren't talking about somebody that's losing their job next week. We're saying these are people that they can realistically look ahead for 2-3 months and say, I'm going to continue to work.
Yeah.
If that's the case, keep on working. That's the most important thing you can do, because it is time to fill the grain silo with grain. You take that money that you make and you put it into the bank account and you stock up as much as you can so that you can last for as long as you can.
Yeah.
That is probably the primary focus that you need to have in this case, always within reason. I mean, when we reach a point of hoarding, of course, we need to start sharing. But when you're realistically looking at a job that could end in 3 months, take every shift you can, work every hour of overtime you can, pick up whatever work you can in order to kind of fill up the bank account as much as possible, pile up the cash as much as you can.
Yeah, I think you're also looking at like trimming some of your excess spending,
right?
And you're reevaluating your budget now to create margin to put away cash, so that in 3 months, if something happens, you're not scrambling then. And in 3 months, who knows how much you could save, but like it could be significant.
Right.
Like you can create habits now that could put enough in the bank where even if nothing happens, you've got that when something does, because the train is always coming down the tracks.
Yeah.
And whether it's a pandemic or some sort of illness or some other global downturn, like it's inevitable, it will happen.
And people in this category, it's important to look at whatever your financial plan is. If you're working extra hard to pay off your debts right now, it's probably time to press pause, pay your minimum payments on your car, on your credit card, on whatever those monthly payments are.
Yeah.
Continue to pay the minimum on them, but it's probably not the time to dump a bunch of cash on those sorts of things, and instead set that cash aside. And this is all temporary. And when the time comes, if 3-4 months go through and you look and you say, actually my job is secure, you can take that money from your bank account that you've been saving and dump it back on the debt at that time. Yeah. So you are just kind of stepping back from what was the normal a month ago into a new normal and saying, for right now, I'm going to pile up cash and really just do minimum payments where I can, minimize how much my outflow is. You're continuing to have inflow. This is good. That should allow that cash to pile up pretty well.
Yeah. As the kids would say, you're going to make it rain in your savings account, right? I'm totally perfect. Okay, good. Moving right along. So moving forward, the crisis could be looming. What we're saying is there's opportunity for you to change habits now that will create that buffer in the future, whether it's this or something else.
Yep.
Okay. Crisis number 3. You've just gotten. I mean, you've just gotten laid off, and we know today a ton of people lost their jobs at Western Montana Clinic, and we know that there are going to be more later this week, and there were some previous in the food industry, and so like, what is it? There's a lot here. What are I mean, or see it coming, or
this is very real for our community. I mean, you read the newspaper and you see, Western Montana Clinic laid off a bunch of people, and my heart hurts for them because their life changed dramatically from last week to this week, and the panic that comes in, for some of us, we feel it as this like rapid heartbeat. For some of us, we feel like a pit in our stomach. Others, it's that weight on the shoulders or the tension headache or something. But that they're feeling that right now because it does feel hopeless in this moment because the pain is so raw, it's so new. The important thing here is, in spite of it being a crisis, it's important to not panic. The decisions that we make while we are panicking tend to make the situation worse.
Yeah.
My dad always used to say he loved to golf. If he hit his first shot off in the woods, he'd go stomping over there. And if he didn't calm himself down for that second shot, the second one sent it even further into the woods. And that's where we are here. Like, okay, we kind of shanked one off. Yeah. It's time to take a deep breath, really focus and say, okay, how can I minimize how bad this situation is for me and my family?
And I think too, one of the frustrating things about our particular situation is there's quite a few people who've been laid off, not for anything that they've done.
Right.
Like, this has all happened to them. And so there's a sense of powerlessness that comes along with this, right? There's a sense in which they're victims to the moment. And so what we want to do is go through about 5 or 6 steps that can help empower you. If you're in this situation or someone that's in this situation, you can send this to them. What does it look like for them to begin getting past the mourning piece, allowing themselves, I love the not panicking thing, and then really moving into some reasonable steps to try and climb out of this as much as possible.
Because the truth is, like right now, it's very much feeling of in the valley. Like this is the low of the low, and the pain and the pressure and all of that is on you, and it's heavy.
Yeah.
But I can promise you, like this is temporary. We are going to get through this, and we need to band together and get through it together. And there will be the day when we're on the hilltop and the sun is shining on our face.
Yeah.
We need to be willing to look back on this moment and say, I remember that valley. I remember how lonely and how painful that was. When we're back on the hilltop and the sun is shining on our face, we need to think through, what can I do in that new moment in order to be better prepared or just make that next trip into the valley less painful.
Good. Well, so with that, let's kind of get into, if you're this person, this person, what does it look like if you're about to lose your job or you just have step 1, and just so you all know, none of this is original with Chris and I. We've kind of compiled a bunch of this resources from Dave Ramsey, and so if you know Dave Ramsey or don't know him, it's just a ton of great content. We've repurposed some of it, so none of this is really new. We've expanded on it and tweaked it and tried to make it contextual. But I'm saying that for copyright issues, I guess. I don't know why, like, we
Yeah,
just
there's no wheel that needs to be invented here.
that's right, right. So
Yeah.
we've got number one, get on a budget. Chris, tell us a little bit why that is. That seems, why would that be so important? You say, like, I don't have any money. Is like,
Right. Well, the truth is, at every one of these levels, all three of them, we should all be on a budget, because what a budget is really saying is, I'm going to tell my dollars where to go instead of kind of being surprised later where they went. It's making a decision in March what money I'm going to spend in April, instead of opening the credit card statement in May to find out where I spent my money.
Right.
And so a budget is really, it is critical for wise financial decisions at any level, but the less money you have, the more painful it is when you aren't tracking how and where you're spending those dollars. So every single dollar matters so much at this stage. If you don't have any inflow, every dollar you have has to be strategically placed so that you don't waste a single one of them.
Well, I think too, budgets give clarity.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost impossible to attack any kind of solution or really move forward with any kind of change unless we actually know what reality is. And so whether you're in a situation where you say, okay, my last paycheck is this coming Friday. Well, we know we've got that coming in. Where's that going to go? Or you say, as a couple, I just lost my job, but my wife, she's still bringing in. Well, you've got to adjust. You need to know what you've got,
Right.
and then so you can figure out where it needs to go. And without clarity, there's no way to adjust lifestyle.
Exactly. So the normally we set a budget for the next month. That's a pretty common thing in our culture. It just tends to work well. Our rent is due once a month. A lot of our payments and stuff are monthly. But at this stage, when you're in a job loss or a furlough situation, you probably even want to break that down a little further and go to like a weekly budget and say, I'm going to look at this with even more detail, like go to the micro on this particular topic so that you can better track what's happening week to week. And the truth is like we've just witnessed week to week how much the information changes. Things are changing fast. Unemployment rules have changed. So that's a change to your budget if you're in this situation. Student loan rules just changed. They have suspended interest on your student loans for the short term. That is not a long-term thing, but there is 0% interest that is accruing on your federal student loans, not all student loans. So if you have private, terrible private student loans, those are probably still accruing interest, but your federal ones are not. Tons of other changes are happening. The changes to the sick leave policy or law that just came out today. So those things are going to change your budget significantly, and they're going to do it quickly. So I think being on that week to week is actually a better plan because the information is changing that fast.
Let me just for those who are sitting here saying, I don't even know what a budget is. I don't know how to create it. I kind of have to. So I give you two real quick resources. One is just mint.com, and they've got all these tools that will connect all your accounts, and so you can see everything and create a budget. One that my wife and I use, it's pulling up here. Nope, that's Mint. Let me just, is Every Dollar. And it's by Dave Ramsey, and we use the app, and it's super powerful. It's given me the kind of clarity. My wife, conversations are no longer emotional about money necessarily. I still get tied up about my Five Guys spending because it's hard to give that up.
Yeah.
But these budgets, they're free. Mint.com or everydollar.com give you kind of the ability and the clarity to do this relatively easily.
Yeah. And you had invited people to join an FPU class.
Yeah.
That's the budget is the first thing that we work on in that. This is a tool that can be taught. Sometimes I think we have a little bit of embarrassment with our finances. Like we should just know how to do all these things without actually learning it somewhere. And I don't even know why that's the case, but we just have like we tend to have a very high sense of pride when it comes to our finances, and that we've got it figured out, even though we probably don't. Most of us don't.
Totally.
You know, a class like FPU it's 9 weeks of your time. The first week we talk a lot about budget and help you kind of navigate what that looks like. If you've never done a budget, this is a great class to jump into, and you know, we can start to teach some of those skills.
All right. So if you want to join our next FPU class, text FPU to 406-206-1988. And when we start running it up, and it'll happen here pretty soon. Want to make sure we're equipping you to do that. You can text that and we'll get in touch with you. So step one was get on a budget. Step two then is to take care of the essentials. And when I mean essentials, I mean what? Netflix, right? That's one of my essentials.
No.
I don't know how I'd get through without my addiction to The Office.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about here, Chris?
I don't think that fits into the essentials. I mean, really, we're talking about the bare bones essentials here. We're talking your shelter, you know, like your apartment, your house, whatever that is.
Yeah. You
really need to pay that bill. You need to pay the utilities. You got to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
You have food essentials that, you know, especially like I don't have kids at home, but you've got enough for both of us. Grocery bill keeps looming, whether somebody's paycheck comes in or not.
Yeah.
And then finally, transportation, your ability to go and look for work or to do part-time work or whatever is going on. Those 4 things have to continue. The other things probably need to get shoved off the table and completely and absolutely ignored once you cancel them. Things like Netflix, things like Hulu, things like, gosh, I mean, you may even have to consider your cell phone bill. Oh no. You know,
let's hold on a second, but let's hold on, because we'll get to all of the slashing and burning in just a second. We talked a little bit about what it looks like to talk to your landlord about like, so if we need to have food, like there's only so much we can trim there, right? We can say, okay, we need to eat less and kind of manage that, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Utilities, when those are fixed costs or kind of fixed costs, you can have your lights on less. But let's say, you know, I've got April 1st, like you're saying, is a week away. Rent is due for a ton of us. How would you approach your landlord if you had just lost your job, or if it was impending? What would be a way that you would approach your landlord to say, hey, man, I don't know if I'm going to have the money or any of that. How would you approach the conversation?
I mean, honestly, if I just lost my job, that would be one of the first phone calls I'd probably make. And I would try to approach it from the perspective of, I want to talk to you, to be respectful and to give you the information that I have. And I just lost my job. I like renting from you. I like that you have provided a place that I can stay in, and I assume you like receiving rent.
Right.
We have a problem because the way it's currently constructed, I'm probably not going to be able to pay rent. I mean, I might be able to pay April's rent, but May is not looking good right now. Is there something that we can do to work this out? Is there a way that you could reduce the rent for the very short term? I'm going to be out there hustling, looking for work, but I know this is going to be a big hit for me and my family, and we're in this together. Yeah. So is there a way that you could reduce the rent for April and May and maybe June, and maybe even offer I could extend my lease. I could stay here an extra 6 months or 12 months or something, like have many things on the table as a conversation point to say, I want to help you, but I'm in a really bad spot. I think it's important in those conversations, before you start them, to take a deep breath, to think about what your volume of voice is going to be and what your pitch of your voice is going to be. And both of them should be lower, because if you enter that conversation in kind of a confrontational tone, that landlord is most likely going to return a defensive sort of response. Yeah. So that's how I would approach it, is just, I want to give you the information, and I feel like we're in this together.
Yeah.
It's best for your landlord to keep you as a tenant.
Yeah.
Even if in the short term they make a little less money. So hopefully they see it that way. Not all of them will.
Right. Not all of them will. I think that to that end, if you're losing your job or you just lost it, you're calling the utilities.
Right.
And you're having this same conversation with as many bills, because at some point, if it continues, you have to stop paying some of those bills. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about that. And I think transportation wise, you kind of joked about, if you've got a $40,000 truck and you have to sell it for $10,000 or $15,000, like, call Chris. He'll put his email right there. But would it be better to have a $40,000 truck with no cash, or a $5,000 car with $10,000 of cash? Right. I mean, all of these things, heated seats and these other things that are luxuries and not necessities, begin to say, okay, well, man, if I can't feed my family, but I can drive around in a beater and get to and from work where I need, and remember, these are temporary things too. These are not forever, but just realizing, I got to put food on the table, I got to keep a roof over my head. And if you've got family members, you might think about bunking them and combining household expenses just to get through this in a temporary manner. That you're doing anything you can to
because this is survival mode at this point. Like when you've lost the job and the income has dried up, you have to transition over into survival mode, and you say, okay, how do we survive? And it's keeping track of those four things that we talked about: the shelter, the utilities, the food, and the transportation, but minimizing all of those expenses as much as is possible and reasonable, so that you can last as long as possible. There are good jobs that are coming back. Right. How soon they come back, we don't know. So we need to be able to stretch this bridge as long as we possibly can to get from where we are today to back into that good job. And hopefully this is, 4 weeks or something of a layoff for somebody, or even less. But if it is 3, 4, 5 months, we've really got to make good decisions today to make that last as long as possible.
Yeah. And so we're going to take care of the essentials, food, utilities, shelter, transportation. And then we're going to do kind of the slashing and burning. And frankly, this is the more painful part of the budget, because these are things that have kind of crept into our lifestyle that have become like fixtures of who we are and how we relax and all of that.
Yeah, these are, in almost every case, or in most cases, I would say these are the fun things in life, right? Like paying the utility bill. I don't know anybody that's like getting jazzed up about that, but going out to eat.
Never mind if they get jazzed about that.
Right. Yeah. But going out to eat, or now it's just takeout only, and in some parts of the country it's not even that. And so in some areas, eliminating non-essential spending has kind of gotten easier. The kids are out of school, but they can't go to the trampoline park. They can't go swimming. You can't spend money in many of the ways that we have traditionally spent money, even if you wanted to. Yeah. But there are still areas that are pulling dollars out of our budget constantly. And it is things that we joke about a little bit, which is, Netflix or Hulu or that sort of thing. But it's also online shopping. I was talking to a friend today, and I had mentioned, like, man, I pay most of the things that I do for fun with cash out of my wallet. It helps me make better decisions with my money. If I'm like pulling a $20 bill out and going, do I want to spend this on that or not? I have the same cash in my wallet from like 2 weeks ago because I can't spend it if I want to.
Yeah.
But what she was saying is like, no, I can still buy stuff online. I'm like, ooh, that's not my thing. But for somebody that's furloughed and you're home and you're bored and you're clicking through online, the temptation to order stuff and have, Brown Santa bring your stuff to your door is really high. And so we have to be able to kind of put a couple of walls up around us that say, boy, I probably shouldn't be on those sites, because then I'm tempted to spend this money that I don't really have.
Right.
And so it is changing some of our behaviors in order to change our spending. Right. And it's not very fun.
Well, I think too, I think of Netflix and Hulu, and like if you've got Netflix and Hulu, right?
Mhm.
You're saying, well, maybe that's like $27 a month. You say, well, that's not that significant. Well, when you don't have income coming in, $27 is rice, beans, it's milk. I mean, that's maybe a week of,
Right.
of like really trimmed down meals that aren't going to Netflix and aren't going to Hulu. Oh, and by the way, like find someone to share a password with for a while. Like that's what we should be crowdsourcing, right? Like
Read the legal description before you do that. Like that's
right, of course.
of course you did. Yeah, yeah.
Chris, you got a password you'll share with them later.
Hey, no, it is watching those little expenses and cutting them everywhere that you can. The pain of this one tends to be kind of high. We talked early on about how we think that all of these decisions are math problems. This is one that's actually these are emotional decisions, right?
Totally.
Like for me to cut Netflix out of my life is like, it's $15, man. Come on.
Right.
And to remove it, I was like, I didn't like that. That was uncomfortable, or whatever your thing is. It's almost always an emotional decision. So now I think the important thing is to figure out, like, why am I feeling this emotion with this spending? And kind of diving a little deeper into what kind of a healthy emotional attachment should I have with money, or what kind of unhealthy emotional attachment do I have with money? And why am I spending in this way or not, and not spending and making myself upset? And like dealing with those emotions of it, I think are as important as anything in this time, because my guess is because the stress is high, because the anxiety is high, it's going to be difficult to have kind, patient conversations with the other people in your home.
Yeah. I think too, there's this understandable trend right now to say, okay, listen, if you want businesses to be around,
Mm-hmm.
in order to take out from them and carry out from them. And I would say, listen, have no shame for not doing that if you're in this position.
I would
just just you relieve yourself. There's a social pressure. Like if there's our responsibility now, and like I love these restaurants, and we're gonna miss a few of them that are gonna be gone after this. Yeah. But like, do not feel pressure to like go. You need to eat, and you need to make sure you can save money, and you like that's one of the things is like, man, these non-essential things need to go temporarily for us to be able to weather the storm. Let's move on to step number 4.
Before we do, one thing on this, like the same thing that we apply to the landlord. Yeah. If there's things that we're under contract, like whether it's a cell phone bill or whatever, and we can't buy our way out of it, man, give them a call and ask them, like, okay, here's where I am. You got to have a way of cutting this down for me. Like, can you knock $10 a month off? Like, what's that to Verizon compared to what it is to you? And so negotiating every one of those things that you can't completely eliminate, like save yourself $5. Like, that's your job this week. If you lost your job this week is to find out, how can I save a few dollars everywhere that I spend it?
Yeah, I think that's great. Step 4, pause your retirement spending and your debt spending as well. Talk us through a little bit of that, so we're not like creating habits of like. I think part of the pausing debt spending is to stop spending the credit card at all, like cut it up, and then kind of walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah. So first off, like you were saying, this is temporary. I don't know if you heard me, but it's temporary. This isn't the long-term solution. This is the short-term solution. It's temporary because we don't want to be on the sidelines with our retirement for way too long. But in the very short term, we do have to push pause here with our debt spending. This is the spot where you actually have to make the hard decisions and say, there's probably going to be some people that aren't going to get paid. Whether that's the credit card or the, like, I don't know, the rent-own furniture or whatever you have going, like, you probably just have to not pay them. that is a hard decision. And, there is a shame, public shaming almost that comes with that. And you have debt collectors call and they're mean. And that's just stuff that you're going to have to deal with. But you have to keep that cash in the home in order to keep those 4 important things that we talked about earlier going. From the retirement perspective, you're going to restart there, but in the very short term, you're going to say, I've got to push pause on that part of my life. Now, a couple of things to talk about specifically in retirement. There are varying perspectives on should I cash out my 401k or my IRA to get that money? Well, there are some of this landscape is changing actually even today. But the truth is some of the worst money that you can take out is money out of your 401k or IRA. There's a penalty, there's tax burden, there's lots of problems that come with this. It is absolutely a short-term solution to a long-term problem. You'll be paying that for a long, long time. Not to mention, with the Dow Jones dropping as much as it has, your IRA and 401k have already taken such a big hit. If you go and pull some money out of there now, it's going to hurt even more. It's going to have a decade or more of consequence on the end of your working career. And so the only times that it is recommended in like the Dave Ramsey world or from my perspective, that you would pull money out of a 401k or IRA would be to avoid foreclosure or to avoid bankruptcy. And that is that you're actually going to fix the problem by pulling that money out. You're not just going to delay that problem. You're actually going to eliminate bankruptcy or foreclosure. If those things are not looming, leave that money in your 401k, leave that money in your IRA, find other ways to fund your temporary situation. But you're going to stop continuing to contribute into it for right now.
Yeah, and I think just one extra note is like if you stop contributing it, you're putting it into savings, right? You're doing your best so that you're trying to get as much cash into savings so that at the end of it, like if you got it, you can reinvest it. Like but if you're in this situation, you're likely going to end up spending it, but your budget doesn't change.
Right.
You're still stripping everything down. You're eating rice and beans. You're doing what you can to get by. One other, I would encourage you. This isn't the time to care about FICO scores, right? Like this isn't the time to care about your credit report or anything.
There's a good chance it's going to take a hit, and that's going to have some impact on you probably in the future. Whether you're looking to get into a new apartment in a year or something, and your FICO score drops significantly through this, then that's something that you're going to have to explain through. But again, it is two reasonable people sitting at a table having a conversation can usually solve a problem. And if your future landlord says, man, I don't think I should rent to you, your FICO's so low, if you can get in front of them and explain, well, here's why it is. Like a year ago, there was this pandemic and I lost my job because of it. I didn't lose my job because I'm a bad worker. I lost my job as a good worker.
Right. And
I've found a new job. This is what I'm doing moving forward. Like that's why that situation happened. And I think in life, the important thing is to try to get to that spot where you're having a reasonable conversation with somebody else and you can just explain the situation.
Yeah. I think real quick, let me just remind you, man, if you have found any of this helpful, we're kind of flying over some major concepts. We'd love to have you as part of our Financial Peace University class. Text FPU to 406-206-1988. It's on the screen here. We'd love to get you a part of that and really kind of dive in deeper. One other thing, I want to thank Ken Bell for commenting and putting some links to Rachel Cruz, who's Dave Ramsey's daughter, I think, or something like that. And Carl Moritz for laughing at our bad jokes. So if you which is natural for Carl, I guess. If you have questions, if you're online, we've got 22 or 23 people watching. If you've got questions about kind of where you're at or budget questions, put them in the YouTube comments. We'd be happy to at the end of the show kind of run through as many as we can. So we've kind of gone through four different steps. One was get on a budget, take care of the essentials, eliminate non-essential spending, pause your debt, and retirement spending. These are all kind of stopping the bleeding measures, right? And so we're going to, two more steps are kind of more proactive, trying to get more in. And so let's talk real quick about step 5, sell whatever you can. So you've gone through the budget, you've trimmed, you've bled everything dry. What's the next step?
Yeah, I mean, you start looking around the house at things that don't fit in those first 4 categories, and you list them on eBay. I mean, I suppose you could still do a Craigslist sale, but I don't know how you keep 6 feet away. But there's, you know, there's a lot of there are a lot of avenues in which to sell stuff.
Yeah.
And so try to identify some things of value around your house and get them out the door. You know, whether that's old toys or vintage clothes or records or who knows what, like that, get that stuff listed and get it sold just to get some cash in the bank account. Yeah. The longer you can last, the better off you're going to be. You know, so there are a lot of online opportunities to sell. I've still had some success recently selling some stuff on eBay. I thought it would just completely dry up, but I've just in the last week, I've sold several things. So,
ebook, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Mercari, a garage sale. I mean, we're just anything you can to begin to find money in your closets, find money in your garage that was just sat there that you would have a chance to sell. We're talking about bringing $10 in, $100 in. Like you'll find that is hugely helpful now, regardless of the time it takes to get it.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking like buying some groceries, buying a bag of rice or something like that is going to make a difference in this very short-term problem.
Yeah. So sell whatever you can. Step 6, work however you can.
Yeah. This is the time to hustle, and sometimes as workers, we've achieved certain things in life and we think that we're beyond maybe a job that we did when we were a teenager. And it is going to be a big piece of humble pie to eat to have to go back to one of those jobs, even if it is for a very short-term period of time. But the truth is, delivering food or mowing somebody's yard or that kind of a thing, if it brings in income, you need to humble yourself and go and do it. There's a time in life that you get paid from the neck up, and there's a time in life you get paid from the neck down. And if you're able-bodied and healthy, you may have to go get a job that involves just lifting heavy things or digging holes. And
I saw like in Missoula, I think Walmart's hiring it's either 5,000 or 500, but you go into the Walmarts and they're aggressively hiring. Is that a job you'd want forever? No, but it's stable now. Walmart, Costco, those places are packed and have there's no sign of stopping there anytime soon. Some other ideas we talked about, just kind of brainstorm. You could teach English online through VIP Kids. If you've got a bachelor's degree, you can teach English to Chinese students via the internet. Like the hours are messed up. You have to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning, but the pay is $15, $20 an hour, something like that.
Well, and like I told you, right now, if you don't have a job, you have hours, you don't have money. So it's time to wake up at 3 in the morning and teach a Chinese kid how to speak English.
Yeah, you can get out, do pet sitting, dog walking, car wash and detailing. I've got a list here. Landscaping, driving for Amazon. They need drivers now. And TaskRabbit, if you've ever heard of TaskRabbit, it's an app where you basically do errands for people. And you're just anything, you're Uber, Lyft, you're doing anything you can, anywhere you can to bring in anything you can.
Right. It's just a matter of going out and hustling. I mean, obviously within this whole framework, this whole context, it is something that fits within your moral framework. That's about the only exclusion that you're going to have here, so long as you're able-bodied and healthy. If it fits in your moral framework, I think it's something that you just need to pick up the shovel and start digging.
Yeah, that's great. I want to just kind of recap a little bit. So we've kind of looked at 3 different types of people who crises aren't on the horizon. They're going to be okay during this. They're going to have a stable job, and we just encourage them to think generously. about what they have and what they could give and share. And whether that's at church, whether that's with your neighbors, being proactive in this moment to find ways to really bless others. And we looked at a second person with people who crisis could be looming. You're in one of the industries where if enough dominoes fall in the next 3 months, like you could be in real trouble. Or a person 3 where we spent most of our time with this morning, where crisis is on the horizon, and what does it look like today to start making progress? I want to remind, I'm just going to put the FPU link back up. If you want to join us, text FPU to 406-206-1988. We'd love to have you. We'll do it via Zoom. And I mean, I just cannot impress upon you how important it would be to, if you find yourself in this, to go ahead and get some more focused help and direction. So we've got a couple questions here. Let me just pop up Franny Freeze. How would you speak to doing that well? And they're in the second category. One of our first reactions, I'll just pop it up. Sorry here. One of our first reactions, they're in the second category where it could be looming here in a couple months, was to cut all unnecessary spending and save. How would you speak to that? Well, how would you speak to doing that well while supporting local businesses and our bigger economy?
Yeah.
That's the tension, right? It's a huge tension.
It is. And, the definition of a difficult question is one that has 2 good answers, right? And that's where we are here is, do I need to save all my money, or do I need to at least help my local economy to some level? And I think where it comes down is being extremely tactical in how you spend those dollars. Yeah. So if you're in category number 2, you can't eat every meal from a restaurant. You have to eat buying groceries instead of going out and taking takeout every day, 2 or 3 times a day. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you have to eat 100% of your meals as grocery meals. So when you do that, seek out a local restaurant, and let's keep the dollars as local as possible so that those dollars multiply as well in our small economy as they can. You said it well when you said, some of these restaurants aren't going to make it. A lot of businesses are not going to weather these storms. And
I personally, I hate that for Missoula. Yeah. I loved seeing how downtown was thriving and growing with new businesses. Yeah. But the reality of this is, if we feel pressure to keep everything open, we will go before they will go.
Right.
And so I think what you said is right. There's a tension. We say, well, it's both, right? We need to save more. And what that means is, one of the things is we cannot eat out like we did 2 weeks ago and be able to do that. And there's just the reality of this is not everyone's going to be here at the end of this. And I don't know how to say that any more graciously. It's just true. And so we don't want you to put yourself in a position where you're not here, but a business is.
Right. And it's a matter of taking a look at your personal financial situation. If you have what would be considered a fully funded emergency fund, that you've got 6 months of expenses sitting in the bank, and 6 months is a long time. That should weather just about any financial storm in your life.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, even if you're in category number 2, you have the financial ability to support some of those businesses more than somebody that maybe has $1,500 in the bank. Yeah. If you only have $1,500 in your emergency fund, you start stretching out those dollars and you go, okay, well, I can pay the rent for April.
Yeah.
I can buy the groceries for April.
Yeah.
I got the car payment. That $1,500 starting to disappear pretty quick here.
Yeah.
And so you have to assess, where are you specifically in your financial situation? And if you're 3 weeks away from not having any money, then you have to pull that back and say, I wish I could help my community more than I can, but I can't. Yeah. And we talked about responsibility early on, and the heavier responsibility is on that first category, that one that said, I've got a stable job.
Yeah.
It's my responsibility to help my neighbors,
Yeah.
to help my local economy as much as I can.
Yeah, and it's a bag of chicken, or it's ordering someone food from Wally and Buck,
Yeah.
which is the best burger place in Missoula. Like, it's not even close. That's just for free.
It's been settled for you? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's delicious. Although Second Set Bistro is amazing too. They've got this thing called the Glory Burger, and yeah, think of like an upscale In-N-Out burger, and that's where you're at.
Wait,
What's that?
really? Okay, when we get to hang out again, I'll buy you that burger.
All right, good. I'm gonna hold you to that. It's recorded now.
Sounds good.
Ken Bell has said, can you make a list available to us of the different places you mentioned to make extra money? Yeah, I'll post that in the comments, along with a link to a Dave Ramsey page that's got 30 ways to make money. And they're all of them. Most of them are side hustles, where if you do enough of them, like, they will provide over time. Some of them will take more time, some of them less time, but I'll be happy to put those up and get those to you.
When we're talking about people that are in that first or second category, if you have something that you need done at your house, like, this is a time to hire somebody to do that. If you need some spring cleaning done around the outside of your house or whatever, like, make it known that you're going to do that. And whether you have a landscape company that's going to do that, or just, your neighbor that is out of work that takes good care of their yard, have them come over and help you, and give them something for the effort, for sure.
And I would say too, back to Franny's question, I was just thinking, if business owners, right, and they're going to go out of business, or they're struggling, like, man, you could go mow their lawn. You could go bring them. I mean, there are ways that we can care and love for those in our community that don't require us necessarily to spend money in the same way. This is going to be a whole community effort to survive this, whether we spend money at small businesses or not. Like, it's going to require a phenomenal shift in community for us to get this together. One other thing, and then we're going to let them go. There are no more questions on here. But we've kind of batted around the phrase emergency fund. You talked about a 6-month emergency fund.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly, because we've been at this for an hour and 2 minutes, and so I mean brief, so another 30 minutes or so. Would just give us a sense what an emergency fund is, and what we're
okay. Yeah, I mean, it's that little sack of cash that you set off to the side that you only use when it's an absolute emergency. So Dave Ramsey always jokes, like, the pizza guy showing up at your door is not an emergency. Like, you should have planned for that. So you're going to take this pile of cash and you're going to put it ideally in a separate savings account or a money market account at the bank. And you do it in a separate account because otherwise it's too easy to filter a few dollars out of there without even really noticing, or kind of doing it almost accidentally. And in the FPU class, we begin with putting $1,000 in your emergency fund is step one. Right after you budget, that is the first step in getting onto the road of financial peace. But then once you get all your debt paid for and everything, a fully funded emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of expenses put in that money market account, and it just sits there. It is not an investment. It's essentially an insurance policy against this situation.
When you say expenses, we're not talking Netflix and Hulu. We're
Exactly.
talking hard expenses. So we can say, okay, if we've got 6 months of expenses, it's not everything I would spend in a month. These are the things I need to live in order to. One other thing, a guy named Jay Purdom.
Jeremiah, my buddy.
There you go. Jeremiah, thank you for commenting. St. Pat's is hiring for environmental services. Walmart's hiring 500 people in Montana. Costco may be hiring temporary employees. I love that. If you're looking for a job, I would go to those places. You could walk into Walmart and get a job today. You may not like it now, but it may get you through for the next couple months to get through it. What's up? All right. Hey, thank you all for joining us. Chris, man, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you just kind of doing a ton of really downloading wisdom on us, man. And grateful for you. And if you want to join our FPU class, I keep talking about this. This is important. You will get the details. You'll feel empowered to get peace. And so that's 406-206-1988. Text FPU to that. Share this video with whoever you'd like, and you can keep commenting. I'm going to put some more comments here for the extra ways you can work, and we'll put if you've got other jobs you can get. We'd love to have that there. Chris, thank you again, man. Grateful for you. Thank you to all who watched and were part of this, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Facebook Live. I'll be on with a small devotional, and Tuesday at a prayer time. And then we'll be back at this Thursday evening talking about anxiety in kiddos and helping parents lead kids through this moment well. That's it for us. We'll talk to you all later. See you later.
Bye.